99-cent rental.
This is 99 Cent Rental. I'm your host, Brian White, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Dave White. Hey, Dave, how you doing over there?
I'm all right. Just trying to get this stuff all set up, this technology here. Speaking of technology, I was just looking at the internet, which is what I refer to.
Is that thing still around?
What I refer to, here they have that on computers now. That's the first Simpsons reference, if you're keeping count.
I think we got two in one there, which is really good.
It's off to a real rocky start here. I was looking at social media, the Instagram there, and I saw, I think I've told you about this before, those like 80s nostalgia meme things.
Yeah, there was one that I started following, and I had to put, I don't know why I didn't just unfollow him. I put him on mute, because like after a while, he started to post like a lot of like, I got my ass kicked by my dad, and I'm doing fine. They don't take away mine. Then I was like, no, you're not really doing fine, actually.
Yeah. That's point two of what I was going to say. My first thing is I am pretty convinced these are just made by AI.
Probably.
It's gotta be AI, because I swear to God, you look at these things and it's like, it'll be like two pictures and it'll be like, what if Rainbow Bright and He-Man had a baby? Wouldn't that blow your mind? Remember when you were kids and you would ride your bike all the time and you and your friends found that treasure? And it's like, wait a minute. This is all real on the nose here, isn't it?
It's like the AI prompt wasn't specific enough, and the little language model went out and was like, yes, children in the 80s, they rode their bikes a lot. I see. Let's see. They also found a psychic friend out in the forest.
Exactly. Yes. The one I saw the other day was it was a picture of like, remember when your gym teacher looked like this, and it was like a picture of, I think I'm gonna guess a wrestler. I think it was like a professional wrestler, and it's like instead of today where they look like this and it's like some woman in yoga pants. And I was like, well, first of all, that's insanely sexist and misogynistic. Second of all, my gym teacher in elementary school most certainly did not look like that. She was a very small, I want to say elderly, but she was probably about 50, chain smoked, and was very, very much out of shape. So, you know what, 80s nostalgia memes, you can fuck off.
Yeah.
Because even if they are made like by actual people, I don't think they're actual people who were alive in the 80s.
No, a lot of that stuff is they're content mills, and so what ends up happening is they start out with like an account like cats being weird little guys, or like I remember the 80s, and then they post and they post and they post and they post and they follow everybody, and they accumulate a shitload of people, because everybody loves cats being weird little guys, and everybody loves. Well, fuck you. But they also love nostalgia, and it's a real easy bait, right? And then what ends up happening is at a certain point, they hit a kind of critical mass in terms of followers, and then they unfollow everybody, and then they delete all of their post history, and all of a sudden, this account that you follow changes its names, and suddenly it's selling you like Dogecoin or some kind of like cryptocurrency that you've never heard of.
Oh, I can get it on the ground floor here.
It's like pictures of Elon Musk holding up credit cards and shit like that. And so like that's what a lot of that stuff is. I mean, some of them are legitimately fun. Most of them are toxic garbage.
I don't think they are neither accurate nor funny.
No. It's some like there's a couple of them that I do follow that I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool. I do like that. I do remember G.I. Joe. That shit was not what I remember, but
no,
but it's still it invokes that sort of fire in me, and so like that shit's okay. But there's a couple of them that do wander into my feed, and I'm like, the fuck is going on here? Like, clearly I don't even know if this is a person, or this person is like 14 years old right now. Like they're as far from the 80s as we are from like, the 60s. So
yeah, because it's like, hey, remember when we used to go outside all the time? And it's like, yeah, I do remember going outside all the time. I also remember spending a lot of time in front of the fucking television.
Oh yeah, dude, I have memories of that, like riding your bike and shit, but I was an indoor kid 100%. Would rather have been playing video games than fucking running around outside.
And why do I bring this up? I don't know.
Yeah, it's just the shit that gets under our skin. Yeah, hey, it's hard to explain to somebody who has never had the experience of what a trip to the video store was like back in the day. Speaking of nostalgia, The shelves were choked with absolutely bizarre crap made on tiny budgets, completely divorced from any recognizable reality, and it was the best. We intend to talk about every one of them. So just before we get into it, if you're hearing this and you aren't aware of our other show, Dave and I do a horror movie podcast on the weeks that 99-cent rental is off called Bring Me the Axe. Our latest episode covers the 1986 cult favorite Night of the Creeps.
Speaking of nostalgia.
And coming up next week, we'll be looking at Tobe Hooper's The Funhouse. I'm looking forward to that one.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that is one that nobody really talks about, and I don't know why, because I think it's quite good. But anyways, if you want to keep up with us between episodes, you can find us on Instagram at Bring Me the Axe Pod. Dave's over there at That Queerwolf.
Yep, looking at 80s memes.
Yep, and cats being weird little guys over here. We got a sweet website at 99centrental.com. You can listen to all our past shows there and read the transcripts. Once again, I'm lying. I still haven't put those episodes up. No. But you can also contact us directly at 99centrentalpod@gmail.com with any questions, comments, or suggestions. Do let us know if there's a cheesy movie that you love and would like to hear us give it the business. Lastly, if you like what you hear, you can subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. We're on YouTube now. You can search for us by name, subscribe if you prefer to consume your podcast that way, and you'd be doing us a favor by leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Also tell your friends.
And tell your friends. Do it right now. Like, text somebody and say, this podcast is pretty good. I think you'd like it.
I think you're going to like this. And they're going to be like, what's it about? And you'll be like, honestly, I don't fucking know.
You're going to be like, it's movies that most of us have never heard of. Lots of Simpsons references for some reason. Yeah. But also, do the 5-star thing. You can do that as you're listening to it. It's super easy.
Those are real important. That's how you get moved up and how the internet recommends you to people. I just refer to all of computers and technology as the internet.
You may as well. I mean, that's the whole nature of the web is it's an interconnected network of computers. So it is one large computer.
Yeah, the net.
The cloud.
Starring Sandra Bullock.
Just want to get all that out of the way right at the top of the show, because I'm going to give you a taste of what we are going to talk about tonight.
Now you can get everything you ever wanted in a movie. In one movie. You can get high. Get low. Get flipped. Get a glow. Get hugged. Get bizarre. Get a plane. Get a car. Get out. Get in. Get religion. Get sin. Get caressed. Get undressed. Get molested. Get arrested.
Evening, officer.
But most of all, get crazy! Get it while it's hot. Get it if you're not. Come and get it. Get crazy! What Animal House did to college, an airplane did to flying, Get Crazy does to rock and roll. Get Crazy, coming soon to a theater near you.
Yeah, it's a real crazy trailer. It kind of shows you everything.
It does and it doesn't.
It doesn't because this movie is very hard to describe.
This movie is not about anything in particular.
I'm going to put this out there right up front. I'm very enthusiastic about this movie.
We are going to be on opposite ends of the spectrum for this one.
I don't understand how you could not like it.
It's fine.
I can see being ambivalent about it, but like. It's
that's
extremely
more
charming.
Okay. I think I'm just kind of ambivalent about it. It's not that I don't like it. Like, I can see what he's doing. I can see what Allan Arkush is going for. But I just don't think it doesn't come to anything.
Okay, so yeah, that is the problem. And there's a really good and a very sad reason for this, because this movie is the sort of product of.
Have you said what the movie is?
I have not. We're watching Get Crazy by 1983. Anyways, this movie is a conflicting vision of three filmmakers.
Does it show?
Yeah. So Allan Arkush is the director, and he intended this to be kind of a cross between like Scorsese's The Last Waltz, but like his version, and Fellini's Amarcord, which is you can sort of see it like he's doing his best to sort of make like a kind of dreamy thing. But the reason that it's also very stupid and zany and crazy is because the guy who made basically did all the production on it is, I can't remember his name, Philip Solo, I think is his name. He's the producer, and his thing was, fuck it, I don't care what you want to do. We're making a rock and roll version of Airplane. Deal with it.
And that is what this feels like. This feels like National Lampoon's Woodstock.
Yeah, that's adequate.
I mean, this is Baby Boomers the movie.
Yeah, but the thing that really kind
Baby Boomers the new batch.
So those two basically butt heads the entire production. They do not get along. They are trying to make different movies simultaneously, and all the while, the executive producer, who again, a dude I didn't bother to look him up. Who gives a fuck? He's an executive producer. His whole thing was, I don't give a shit. This movie is going to fail because I have sold a lot of shares to a tax shelter group who only makes money if this movie is a failure. So his whole thing was, fuck this movie, to which Arkush was just devastated. And so the vibe on this movie is all over the place, and it's completely off. But
I mean, all of those things are totally evident. So I can see so Allan Arkush, for those who do not know, also made Rock and Roll High School, a more proper cult film, I would argue. And I can see that one was much more of a Corman-esque production. Like that's got Corman's sticky fingers all over it, and I think his daughter as well. I think more so his daughter than Corman himself.
Yeah.
But and you can see what Arkush is trying to do here. He's trying to. This is an homage film to his youth and to that kind of attitude of the '60s. And I was watching it thinking, you know, first of all, I think that the '70s and into the early '80s did a real number on boomers, I think.
Oh, sure.
For a lot of reasons. But you can see this is a movie that is trying to say, look, everybody, this whole new, like, kind of oppressive, repressive Reaganism is really getting us down. But hey, remember when stuff was fun and you were young and you didn't have to worry about shit? Let's do that. I think where he goes wrong, and I think that is I can see it. It feels genuine what he's trying for. It gets lost under all this other dumb bullshit. But I think where he goes wrong is that there's no actual bands in this. So Rock and Roll High School has the Ramones in it. Now, it wasn't supposed to have the Ramones in it, but it did, and they're a real band. This doesn't really have any real bands. It has Lee Ving, which is great.
Yeah, it's got Fear. Basically Fear is in
well,
it.
Well, it has the most important part of Fear in it.
But also, it doesn't really have Fear in it. But no, apparently his original vision, when I said this is supposed to be like The Last Waltz, like he wanted the real bands in this, and he kind of gets them in the form of like
band members who aren't actually playing music.
Yeah, like cameos and like musicians as actors, but the bands that he wanted, he couldn't afford. And so that whole vision...
And most of them had broken up by that point anyway.
Yeah, and so that vision of The Last Waltz just crumbles. But what you're left with, it's a pretty functional music movie. I think
that's why it fails, though, is that it's a very mediated engagement with music that just feels, as much as what he's doing feels genuine, the whole thing feels so inauthentic.
I disagree. I think that it works. The music bits in this movie work, and I like a lot of the music that's in it. That was written for the movie, you know, because the soundtrack does have like...
Yes, it does.
The soundtrack's really
it has all
good.
the songs on it.
Yeah, and it's got it's got the licensed stuff like the Ramones and Sparks, but it's also got the Laurie Eastside Nada stuff. It's got Piggy, basically Fear. That Fear track has since been reissued.
Oh, I fucking hate that song
on Fear the Record. I don't like it either. But is all the Reggie Wanker stuff on there too?
No. Wait, no. Some of it is. I think there's one or two songs on it.
That's really funny. But yeah,
I think those are the worst.
Yes, yeah. But this is like to your point about the sort of the kind of like the boomer effect is. This is something that I noted very early on when I was writing my notes for this, but I couldn't really find a fucking vector to sort of introduce the idea, because what ends up happening is this movie comes out. So we'll do some facts right now. The year is 1983. We're going to do some shit out of order just because I want to kind of get this out there before it escapes me.
Yeah, we're off to a real messy start. So you just do whatever you need to do.
But yeah, so what I'm saying is this is 1983. MTV has not really hit yet.
MTV still didn't do. MTV did a very specific kind of music until like 1984.
Right. So yeah. So MTV comes out in late 81, I think.
Yep.
And kind of muddles about, because what ends up happening is at this point, something like 5% of households in America have cable, and not all of those cable providers have MTV. So MTV is still very exotic.
And they only played MTV didn't become MTV until Michael Jackson, essentially, until that second album. What the fuck is that album called?
Thriller.
Thank you, Jesus.
God, how did you blank on Thriller?
I don't know.
No, but that's to my point is, the next year after this movie, 1984, is a fucking crazy pop cultural year, because like on top of a bunch of like really, really awesome movies, you get like Cyndi Lauper and Michael Jackson's Thriller, and fucking Purple Rain comes out.
Yeah, it is. When it comes to music, you would be hard pressed to find a more significant year.
Yeah, like Madonna and Billy Idol. Like pop music changes significantly in 1984 in a way that really kind of rips the boomer identity like away from them and just sort of hands it off to the next generation. Make of that what you will, but that really does sort of like add to the kind of boomer anxiety that just
because it starts to point to their fading relevance.
Yeah.
And I mean that in like in like a pop cultural sense. I don't mean that in all sense of the words, but they start to realize like, oh, the world isn't really for us anymore. And as someone who is of that particular era now, it is a hard thing to start to recognize, like, oh, I don't get this because this is not for me.
Oh, shit, yeah.
But I think once you recognize that and embrace it, the world gets a lot more fun.
Yes, because this happened when we were both working at the record store. There was a moment where I was like, I deal with this shit like every weekend because I just work there part-time, but like, I don't recognize any of this stuff. None of this music fucking appeals to me. This was the era of like the Strokes and Franz Ferdinand and Thursday, and like I could not get into any of that shit. I did not like it, and there was a weird panic in me. And then like a few years went on by, and I was like, I don't fucking care. I've got like 100 fucking years of music to fall back on that I do like. So these kids can have it. I don't give a shit.
I think there is something very freeing to being able to say like, I don't need this. They can have, like, this is for them. They need to have stuff too. Let younger people have their own shit like we had our own shit. And once you embrace that, life gets a lot easier and I think a lot more fun and a little more carefree. You can see in this movie,
it's a huge burden off your shoulders to just say fuck it and mean it. But yeah, this is definitely somebody, because Arkush is still out there and he still makes stuff. He does a lot of work with like Joe Dante still. And so he's involved in like Trailers from Hell. And a lot of the stuff that he does over there is music related. So he's like a music guy. And so like this was very important shit to him because a lot of that, like you said, that Woodstock shit, it was like, that was his age, So there's a lot of that in here. Plus, but he's also very much in tune with what was happening at the time. Like, the Ramones was probably his idea when he made Rock and Roll High School, because that was
I can't remember the Rock and Roll High School was supposed to be the Bee Gees.
Yes, because it was a disco movie.
And then it fell apart, and I think it was Corman who said, "Do this." Just how about, or his daughter, I think, because she was quite young, and I think she was like, "What about this band? They seem like they're really cool." But the Ramones weren't that. I mean, that was 77, 78.
77.
So they're not that popular at that point.
No. I'll Leave Home, Rocket to Russia. Like, they were a
love
blip.
Those records, but
they're fucking awesome. But yeah, they were definitely like a blip. They were cheap, is what it was.
My issue with this movie though is that the music feels, I guess, like it feels inauthentic. Like you get like blues music, but it's like blues music as young white people understand it.
Yeah.
Which is like
no, for sure.
when you know, they really love like they just heard Howlin' Wolf, but they also love Steely Dan. I'm like, oh, fuck off, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Or like punk rock is understood in the same way that like they understand it in New Year's Evil, where it's like, what is like you know enough to get Lee Ving, who's the only actor / punk rocker at the time anyway.
Was this his first movie?
When does Clue come out? 81?
86.
This might be. I mean, he's in decline, I think.
Yeah, but I mean as an actor.
This might be because like, and that guy's been desperate to be in fucking movies forever, basically, and he's fine, I guess. But like yes, you have an actual guy from a punk band, but your representation of punk feels so out of touch.
I disagree, and we'll talk about it when we get there because I got you know me, I got my notes and shit.
I think Malcolm McDowell's performance is the worst in this whole fucking movie.
I think he's fucking awesome.
I think his performances, his acting is fine. I think he's a fine actor. I think he's a good actor in general, but
he's very, very funny.
His stage presence feels so weak to me.
It is. It's weird, and I think that it's that like the hectic nature of the movie is doing him no favors.
And I think a lot of that's how I feel about a lot of the music in this is like the way it is portrayed on stage never feels right except for Lee Ving because he's the only person who actually performs on stage authentically.
Laurie Eastside was also a musician.
Well, she seems like she is, but she doesn't. They focus on like when that band plays, Nada plays. They're all over the place with the cameras just constantly
because
like
she's
panning.
got 15. She's got like 1,500 members.
Jesus Christ! It's like the fucking Globetrotters up there.
All right, here's some facts proper. We said it's 1983, so here's some other movies that were released that year. So 1983 also brought us Suburbia, which I would say is a proper, like, hardcore movie.
Yes.
Also in 83, Angel.
The prostitute movie?
Yes.
Oh, that's a good movie.
That's a good movie. Staying Alive came out that year.
No, that's not a good movie.
Not a good movie. Not a fucking good movie.
No.
What is that fucking play about? I gotta know. Anyways, also that year, Screwballs, which fucking sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And rounding it out, just to let you know, 1983 was not a very good year. Superman 3 came out that year.
Yikes. Is that the one with Richard Pryor? Yeah, that one's real bad.
Not a good movie, man. Not a good movie. Cast and crew, as we said, the director is a man named Allan Arkush. He was one of Corman's guys. He's best known for directing Rock and Roll High School, as we said.
He also made Death Sport, which is a movie I like very much.
It's surprisingly good.
Mm-hmm. You get David Carradine, you get a post-apocalyptic wasteland. What else do you need?
I can think of a few things.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's also known for a couple of real hardcore flops in the 80s. The year before this, Allan directs Heartbeeps, which we mentioned in another episode.
We did. That movie is weird as hell, and it does not work in any way.
No, and the whole thing was a pilot to see if Andy Kaufman could like hold an entire feature picture together.
And surprise, he couldn't because Andy Kaufman had a personality disorder.
Yeah. Unfortunately for everyone involved, no dice. One of Arkush's last features after this one, I believe, is the universally reviled Caddyshack 2.
Ooh.
And so after that,
Caddyshack 1's pretty bad. Caddyshack 2 is terrible.
Yeah, I have a warm spot for Caddyshack, but Caddyshack 2, holy shit, dude, that is a bad movie. After that, he retreats into television directing. He also does a lot of music videos.
He was doing music videos when he was making this too. He did. Was he doing Dokken? I think.
Maybe.
I think he did a Dokken video.
Oh shit! I need to look that up because he also did, which I'm going to talk about at the end. He did that Bette Midler video for Beast of Burden that has a weird connection to this one. So yeah, I think he's retired now, but he's done a ton of television that you've definitely seen. Like he did a lot of like prestige shit. The cast, and I'm gonna keep it to my usual 3 because who the fuck is not in this movie?
It's like Wu-Tang Clan. Who knows? At one point, I may have been in this movie. You never know.
So leading it up is Daniel Stern, the wet bandit himself.
Yeah. Also, young Kevin Arnold, or old Kevin Arnold, as it were.
That's right. Yep, voiced the Wonder Years. He started out his career on stage in New York. As a result, he shows up in a lot of movies produced around New York before becoming one of the more recognizable faces of the 80s and 90s.
And he is great in this. I think he is probably one of the best parts.
Yeah.
I love him in general, but especially in Chud.
He's fantastic. And I said, yeah. So yeah, listeners of this show likely know him from Chud. If you don't already know him from Home Alone. Apart from acting, he's also a sculptor and specializes in bronze. Yeah.
A Renaissance man.
Yeah. And it's also, as we said, Malcolm McDowell's in this. He's one of the most vital English actors of the 1970s. He takes a real weird turn in the 80s.
Yeah, I feel like he's one of those ones where it's like, this was supposed to go different. This wasn't supposed to work out the way that it did. Because he's in like A Clockwork Orange, he's in Caligula, and then shit goes off the rails a little bit.
Yeah. It starts with Alex DeLarge. It ends up in here in 1983 doing his best Mick Jagger impression. To great effect.
Yeah, no,
it's
evident.
He seems to be having the time of his life. I love him for it. And rounding it out, we got Ed Begley Jr.,
who is the second best part of this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, he's great in everything, but...
Yeah, he's another one of the most recognizable faces of the 80s. I never realized it, but this dude was one busy motherfucker. When I looked him up on the IMDb, I was like, Jesus Christ, what is he not in? Yeah. Most people recognize him from St. Elsewhere in the 80s, but there's hardly a movie or TV show that he's not in. He seems positively confused in this movie. But again, he seems to be enjoying himself at the very least.
Yeah, he is a very good comedic actor.
Surprisingly, because also...
he's done a shitload of comedy. He's in like Christopher Guest movies now.
Yeah, and he's in Transylvania 6-5000, which I fucking love.
Yep.
Also in this movie, we got Lee Ving, Lou Reed, Howard Kalin, Paul Bartel, Mary Warrenov, John Densmore, Bobby Sherman, Fabian, Robert Picardo, Clint Howard, Dan Frischman, and Dick Miller.
And just when I fired this movie up, I was like, you know what? This feels like a movie Clint Howard should be in. And lo and behold, there he is, very briefly, but he's
very
in
briefly. Yeah. So here's some taglines for this movie. Last chance to party this summer. But which is weird because it's a New Year's Eve movie. And then also, this one runs underneath the title, Get Crazy and Say Goodbye to Your Brain. Yeah. And also, it was the greatest rock event ever until the place exploded. Yeah. Tagline, that's a real art to taglines. You got to get the right guy to write a tagline. And apparently this one did not. But who does?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Satan's waiting. That's a pretty good tagline.
That's a good one, man. This movie, like you said, this is to me, this is like a Mad Magazine collaboration with High Times.
One of my notes says this is Mad Magazine the movie.
Yeah. Like right down to the way that they portray punks.
Yeah, it is slapstick and goofy. They do not waste an opportunity for a fucking gag.
Yep. Oh shit, there's a part of I had I struggled with the notes on this one because this movie is mostly sight gags, and I'm going to talk you through a couple of them, and it's going to suck. So just fair warning.
Yeah, no, this is very like young white guys. What young white guys think is funny in 1972. That is what this movie is. Yeah. This is like if Bill Murray were a movie.
Yeah, and it's it's drug references like constantly.
Yeah,
like this again, sort of like just in that way that like right as 1984 happens and MTV kind of takes over. This happened right as Just Say No was happening, and so it hadn't really Nancy Reagan's thing hadn't really taken over yet. So there was still kind of like a cutesy wink and a nod to drug jokes, and so there's a shitload of drug jokes in the sort of High Times way, where everybody's smoking weed, but also, I don't know if you knew this, there was a period in the 70s when High Times would have fold out center sections of piles of cocaine.
Okay. Maybe not the best thing to encourage, but it was the 70s.
Yeah. So like I said, but this happens right before Just Say No, and kind of Miami Vice also kind of went a long way to kind of have a sort of measurable opinion, not necessarily on use, because it really didn't curtail use, and coke use got even worse in the 80s when it turned into crack, but those things sort of had an effect on the way that people sort of perceived them, and so all of a sudden in 84, cocaine is still very fashionable, but you don't talk about it the same way that you used to.
Yeah, because it's not fun anymore, because John Belushi's dead.
That's right.
Yeah, this has a very much like a, hey man, why you gotta harsh my mellow kind of vibe, and it's like, oh god,
there's a whole like joke involving that actually.
Yeah, and I think that's what bothered me so much about it. Is like I am kind of interested in seeing the movie Allan Arkush wanted to make. I think it would have been cheesy and nostalgic as fuck, and it really wouldn't have resonated with me. But I still want to see it. What this ended up being is like, I don't know, it's so dumb that it kind of kills whatever he's actually trying to do.
Yeah. I mean, but also,
it's nothing but cameos too. It's just like, if you could, it's Cameo the movie, Baby Boomer the movie and Cameo the movie. And my tagline would be, what's the word? Word up. Yeah, you like that? It's good. Firing on most cylinders.
Yeah. So yeah, this movie takes place in sort of like in our Phantom of the Paradise episode. Mm-hmm. It takes place in a rock palace, which they're kind of rare these days because like
I think they're mostly gone.
Yeah, like there's still nightclubs. There's still a couple around in certain cities, but most of them are.
But I think the other thing that this is predating by just a couple of years is the sort of corporatization of America. Yeah. Like before like corporations bought this like film studios and shit.
Sure, yeah. I mean, that's the whole Colin Beverly thing. Like his aim, his angle is never really.
That is the Ed Begley character.
Yeah, it's never really clear what he represents. I suspect that at one time he was probably like a disco producer, and this was probably written during the whole disco sucks thing. Mm-hmm. But they at a certain point, I don't know what, but they like must have omitted that because his character is really, really
their motivations are a little bit obscure, maybe.
Yeah. But anyways, the movie, the Rock Palace in this one is a place called the Saturn. It's based on the Fillmore East, which is where one of the movie's writers and Arkush both worked as ushers as kids. It's a big like tribute to that, and I can understand that because like I looked at some of the bills for shows that were at the Fillmore and the Fillmore East, and they sounded positively fucking magical.
Oh yeah, I mean it's like anytime someone puts out a live record between like 1964 and 1978, it's there, and it's like the Allman Brothers and the Grateful Dead together.
Yeah. And it features like a walk-on like jam sesh with like everybody you ever heard of in the 60s.
Who just kind of happened to come by that night.
Yeah. So
this was surprisingly reviewed very well.
Really?
Yeah.
Because it's a goddamn nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, it got, pretty much everybody, even Gene Siskel enjoyed it. He called it a thoroughly wild and entertaining rock comedy.
Yeah. This is the guy who was making fun of rock music in other reviews. I think in the Phantom of the Paradise episode, he was shitting on it.
Well, this is also the guy who gave Betsy Palmer's address to just anybody, so he can eat 11 bags of shit. I mean, he's dead, so he can't. But if he were still alive.
So yeah, should we do this? Should we get into it?
Why not?
Yeah, there's not really much to know about this movie. It doesn't have a very interesting production, but it's fascinating in its execution. So we open up on a spaceship crawl because Star Wars was still fresh.
Yeah, this is our second movie that opens in a row that opens with a space theme.
What was the other one?
What was the last one we did? Night of the Comet. Night of the Comet? Not Night of the Comet. Night of the Creeps. God damn it.
Jesus Christ. We are off our fucking game tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Everybody was still spoofing that opening. Kind of like how like up until about like 2012, people were still like doing bullet times Matrix jokes.
Oh yeah.
It was like that.
I mean, it's the 2001-ification of openings.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a ground crew monitoring the ship and everything, but as the ship comes forth, we see that there's a guy happily riding it like a motorcycle while wearing a spacesuit, and that maybe it's some kind of elaborate special effect, because it is. It crashes into the giant number 83, and it's revealed to be the big reveal for midnight at the Saturn Theater, which is gearing up for the biggest concert the world has ever seen on New Year's Eve.
Yep. My first note says, I get the feeling this one's going to have a lot of zingers.
And we meet our main players, Max Wolf, who is the owner of the Saturn, Neil Allen, his stage manager, and Max's sniveling nephew, Sammy. Mm-hmm. Mary Warnoff is also there.
Love Mary Warnoff.
Yep. And because Arkush came from the Corman scene, you're going to see a lot of Corman people in this.
And because Mary Warnoff never went anywhere without Paul Bartel, Jesus,
Yep.
He's also going to be in this a lot.
He's also going to be in it, yep. So Max tasks Sammy, a corporate stooge in a suit, with buying him a chili dog. And angry that he's just an errand boy, he kicks a poodle that's just hanging out there. Yeah, and there's a sight gag where a control board blows up and Sammy looks like a cartoon character who got shot by a cannon.
What I do love about this so far is that the hero, the man who is going to save rock and roll, is just a frumpy old Jewish guy.
He's definitely he's your everyman.
Yeah,
he's our blue collar hero.
And meanwhile, Ed Begley comes in looking a little effete, if you will.
Silver lame suit. Yeah. So next, enter Willie Loman, former stage manager for the Saturn. She's named after the character from Death of a Salesman for some reason.
Yep. She was also Vicky on Full House.
And she's in Halloween. No, she's in Halloween 3.
No, that's his sister.
That's his sister. That's his sister. All right. Yep. And then Neil is immediately in love with her. And there's a fantasy scene where they immediately embrace and make out.
Because again, this is some real white guy boomer shit. Like it is just dripping with like I don't even know how to describe it. It's like it is humor of a particular era that is just so kind of cringy.
She's out of a job right now because a dude named Colin Beverly bought her venue out and shut it down. So she's back where it all began. And so next we meet the bad guys in a helicopter. Mm-hmm. How do we know they're the bad guys? Because the title card says so.
Because it's Fabian.
Yep. And they're also wearing silver lame suits. There's Colin Beverly, head of Serpent Records, and his two lackeys, Mark and Marv, who are played by Bobby Sherman and Fabian.
So for those of you who do not know, they were singers in the 60s and 50s. I think 60s.
Yeah, and but they were like sort of syrupy pop singers.
Oh, they were teen idols. Fabian was a teen idol.
Yeah, as evident in Laverne and Shirley.
Yep.
And so they what they do is Colin Beverly will say something, and they have they footnote whatever he says with a remark of their own, and they do it throughout the movie.
And this whole movie is going to have a lot of like, what the hell am I watching?
And so the plan is to buy out Max Wolf and close the Saturn, a very typical sort of story. To arrange such a deal, they land their helicopter in front of the Saturn, and because this movie is a real-life Looney Tune, like ladies' dresses are flying off all over the place.
Again, it's a certain kind of white guy humor.
It's that period of like the sort of like the bleed in of the 70s to the 80s. There was a lot of it.
It's real like it's not Saturday Night Live. It's like safe humor, but it's in a way where you're like, it's fine, whatever, until it comes to anybody else where it's like women, black characters, gay characters, Jews. And you're just like, oh, Jesus Christ. Everybody's getting it in this one. Zing, zing, zing.
All right. So Sammy is in love with Colin. He loves his style and his wealth. There's some more sight gags where Sammy walks through the windows instead of opening the doors. And then there's the inevitable confrontation between Colin and Max. Colin offers to buy out the lease and put Max in a stadium situation, which was still kind of a novel concept at the time.
I already don't know who these people are. Which one's Max? Max is
the theater owner.
Okay.
Yeah.
You say it like with incredulity. There are 8 million people in this movie.
Yeah, I've also watched this movie a bunch. I enjoyed it a great deal.
I watched a real shitty version of it because I couldn't find it on anything, so I found it on YouTube, and it was like something that someone recorded from Impact TV, which basically looks like Maxim.
So, have you were able to see like it was probably the one where it has like the boom and all the shots, and you can see the tops of the sets and shit.
Yes,
because originally when this movie was released, when it went straight to VHS, they did not format it properly, and so all of a sudden you see like dolly tracks and the boom is in like every single shot, and like I said, you can see like lights and the tops of the sets and stuff,
but it's also like a real shit transfer, so it's not like I really noticed any of that.
No, for a long time there was no DVD release of this one. After this movie passed out of print, it did not come back into print, so bootlegs based on that like crappy version that you saw were the only ones available,
because I first saw this like 20 years ago.
Yeah, so you probably saw that version of it. I also saw this for the first time like 20 years ago, but there's a blog. I can't remember the name of it. It's you can link to it from the Wikipedia entry about this, but Arkush is in the comments like talking to the blog author about like why it looked that way and why there will never be a version of it that comes out proper. And he's like, we lost all the audio materials and like everything's lost, so this is a lost cause.
Well, somebody found it.
It did come out. Like Kino put a version.
Yeah, Kino put it out a couple 2 years ago maybe.
Yeah,
all right,
and
you know
it's
what
got
it just occurred to me what the humor is. The humor is really National Lampoon's humor.
Yeah.
It's that Mad Magazine. Like, unless you are a white man, young white man, the humor is not really going to resonate with you at all.
well, what is it? National Lampoon was Harvard's thing, wasn't it?
Yes, and they were snotty as hell. They're the fucking worst.
Right, but also worth pointing out, at the time, that shit was pretty edgy.
Well, because who is leading everything at the time?
Yeah, but yeah, that's a good point.
Because the more I watched it, I'm just like, yeah, I mean, I get it. Everything's a fucking airplane joke. Like, you can picture Leslie Nielsen saying every one of these fucking lines. And that gets pretty exhausting after a while. Because like, it's great when Leslie Nielsen does it. It's less great when Daniel Stern does it.
Airplane is a singular movie.
Yes. You say that, but there is a sequel.
No, there isn't. Yeah. So Max tells Colin to fuck off. And Colin swears to break him and level the theater because fuck rock and roll. Which makes me think that like his original angle in the script was he was a disco guy.
And he comes across pretty gay. At least in this introduction he does. He doesn't maintain that. That's a little bit weird coming from him because he's a decent actor. He's pretty inconsistent throughout this movie. But initially there's like a weird kind of like I said, he's kind of an effete character.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't really read him that way. He's just.
It would make sense if the original thing was a disco thing.
I would say so. Yeah.
And
I would
if
imagine
they
that
track at some point after that. That might be why the character also sort of changes track a little bit.
I'd wonder how long this script had been around because it would make sense that like if the script was written in like 78 or 79, like Disco Demolition happens in 79. But by 83, like the disco is really over. And so to have a disco villain in the movie.
It's over. I don't want to say it's over. It's over in the mainstream. Dance clubs were still very popular throughout most of the 80s. I think because disco starts with the black community and the gay community, it gains a lot of popularity and then it fades out and sort of goes back to being something for the black community and the gay community.
Well, that's what I mean is by this point in the 80s, like the pop culture obsession with disco is way over.
We're setting bonfires on the fucking football field or whatever that stupid radio station did.
It was Comiskey Park in Chicago.
Well, it's a terrible idea.
It was. You ever see the photos from that?
I have. It's weird. It's aggressive, and it borders on racist at certain points.
Yeah. So Max then attacks Colin at that outburst, that fuck rock and roll outburst. But he is stopped when he appears to have a heart attack. And then Colin leaves, and Sammy realizes that if Max dies, he inherits the Saturn and goes chasing after Colin to tell him.
Meanwhile, someone gets Dr. Paul Bartel.
Dr. Paul Bartel shows up
people.
to check Max out and explain to the stage crew that he's a very unhealthy dude while one of the stage guys sneaks bottles of pills out of the doctor's bag.
Did it have to be the black guy? The one black person on this cast, did it have to be him? Couldn't it have been anybody else?
I don't know. I don't get a malicious feeling from this joke.
That's the problem though, is that these things weren't meant maliciously. It's that they were thoughtless. And they read very, very differently when you are the one on the receiving end of it. Which is why, when I say this feels like white guy humor, it's because to white guys, they're like, yeah, it's hilarious, it's so edgy. And everyone else is kind of cocking an eyebrow, being like, it's actually not that cool when, like, women's dresses are being blown up and, their fucking bras being torn off. Like, that's the whole thing, is like, nobody did this shit intentionally. They just didn't bother to think about anybody else when they were doing it.
No, what I mean is he's like the only other stagehand character that has spoken lines, is what I'm saying. Is they would have had to pay other people, like, union wages and shit and give them cards and stuff. I don't think they were like, of course, put a black man there. He's going to, they steal all the time.
That's a pretty weak defense.
All right. But, anyways, they find out that all the stolen drugs are just like regular drugs. It's nothing exciting. So after the doctor leaves, they all lament that they had a lot of work to do, not a lot of time. And if they had some serious drugs, they could pull it off. So then there's a puff of smoke, and then there's an alien, or maybe a robot, or an alien robot. I don't really know what this character is, but we're going to see him a lot, and I love him. He's a dude dressed in all black leather with a black hat. His face is obscured by a head sock or something. But he's got glowing red eyes and a briefcase full of drugs. Neil introduces him as Electric Larry, and if there's anyone in this movie that I want to know more about, it's him.
They really don't explain this, do they?
They never do, not once. And he's going to show up a couple of times. I don't know why he looks this way or like what the whole deal is. It's just goofy bullshit that they threw in. So now, equipped with outstanding space drugs, the crew kicks into high gear, manages to get all the stage work done as the film plays double time to some surf music. Now, above L.A., in Colin's helicopter, Colin continues to outline the plan to Sammy. If he can get Max to sign their release, Sammy will get the deal that was offered to Max. And then they throw him a parachute and kick him out of the helicopter, Pinochet style. And so with all that out of the way, Neil gives a pep talk to Joey. He's the young stagehand who played Arvid.
I was going to say, isn't he on Head of the Class?
Yeah. For some reason, I always remember him being Eddie Deason, but I'm wrong. Apparently, that actor is now like a big deal at like Nickelodeon.
Yes, him and one of the other guys from Head of the Class.
Yes,
who turned out to be, I think, kind of a creep.
He's like a sex criminal. Yeah, I hope this guy is not a sex criminal either. But who can say? Then we get some more fantasy shit from Neil as Willie enters the scene wearing some strange Fredericks of Hollywood getup while he's dressed as Tarzan and is carrying a chimp. And then Willie left the theater to see if she was good as she thought she was, or if it was just all the magic of the Saturn that was doing it for her. Now she's back. But people really felt strongly about these theaters, I guess. But even I have like kind of like warm memories of going to see like punk shows at really shitty venues. I greatly prefer those to like the sort of like big venues that we are all kind of forced to go to now.
I don't think I've been to anything really since then.
Well, Ghost was at a pretty big venue.
That's not like an outdoor like amphitheater.
Yeah. But I have not seen anything like on like the fucking like on the scope of like Taylor Swift or anything like that. Like I would never enjoy that shit. Actually, you went to see.
I did. It was terrible.
The same thing. God, fuck that shit.
It was Billy Joel.
Billy Joel.
Yeah, it was at Gillette Stadium. It was terrible.
Good God. But
it was also pouring rain. No, I don't think it would have been that much better though.
Speaking of boomers. But then a bunch of hippies invade the theater. This is a band.
The guy from
apparently.
The Turtles.
Yes, this is Howard Kalin from the Turtles. His name is Captain Cloud, and his band is the Rainbow Telegraph. Because they're hippies, they're high all the time, and they think that it's 1969 forever. So
I read an interview with Allan Arkush, and he was talking about this, and he was talking about how he realized when they went into production, he was like, I was going to the movies a bunch, and I realized that young people, their attention spans were so much shorter. So I realized I had to make everything move really fast, and I was like, I don't know, I think you may have made things move a little too fast.
Yeah. Because they're Max's favorite band, they get to play at the show too, in spite of the fact that they're not actually booked.
Except they don't, do they?
No, they don't. Even though Max is like, you get to sing the finale, Auld Lang Syne at the end. And then at the end, everybody sings Auld Lang Syne. So then more bands arrived. Up first is Nada and her clown car of girl group.
She gets out wearing ice skates?
One of the girls in the band does, but it's not Nada. She gets out last. And there's that guy who's always going Nada, 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 Nada. And then, there's like 100 members of this band. And they've also got 2 dedicated saxophone players, which is something that I really wish more bands did these days. It's something that I really look back on fondly.
I'd take one.
I'll take one. That's all you need. 2 is excessive. 1 is awesome. But also Piggy is also featured on this bill, and he is stuck in the trunk of her car. Piggy is played by Lee Ving of the band Fear. And they portray punk rock in the way that basically everybody at the time thought of it.
Yeah.
He's bleeding, he's wrapped in barbed wire, and he acts like a real-life version of the Muppet Animal from the Electric Mayhem. And he's
basically Vivian from the Young Ones.
From the Young Ones. Yeah. He signs Neil's Saturn contract by headbutting it.
Same Vivian.
That's what punks do. Also, we see that character Joey a bunch. He's the sort of like nerdy young stagehand, and he's got
the head of the class.
Yes, his coveralls say the Naz in red glitter, and I get a feeling that because every fucking frame of this movie has a joke in it, that's a joke. But were
they supposed to be in it?
Maybe.
Aren't they a fake band?
No, it was Todd Rundgren's band.
That's right.
So maybe they were like one of the bands that Arkush wanted to, because people have a real like weird love affair with Todd Rundgren. I don't fucking get it.
I've never gotten it.
But whatever, it's just not for me apparently. So yeah, Neil then has another Willie fantasy where she's tied to a stake, about to be burned like a witch, when in walks Robert Picardo, playing the fire inspector, who intends to put a damper on the whole show. No pyro allowed.
So Robert Picardo, isn't he Eddie in The Howling?
Yes. Yep. So yeah, he's a real bummer, man. But Great White learned the hard way that pyro in a club is a real bad idea, man.
Yikes.
So elsewhere at a funeral, King Blues and a shitload of blind singing bluesmen say goodbye to blind Luther Washington, his old manager. The best guitar player, driver, lover of women, and drinker of whiskey that there ever was. And he tells God to take care of him, or so help him, he's going to wax your ass.
All right.
I love that fucking line. So then, all the blind guys stumble around, and one of them falls into the grave, shouting, "I'm not dead." So now, Luther's son takes over as King Blues manager, but now he intends to be called Cool. He's going to get him to the Saturn no matter the cost. And so now they get in the car, they crash their way through Los Angeles.
That's a real Keystone Cops moment.
Yeah, it's like Murtaugh's station wagon from the Lethal Weapon movies.
Like, why is he such a bad driver, and why is that funny?
I think it's funny. But anyways, yeah. Willie is about to leave for the night when Max lures her in by promising that Auden will be there. And everybody freaks out. They can't believe it. He's a shut-in now. So they call him up, and it's Lou Reed, and believe it or not, he's really quite funny.
Yeah, I was surprised by Lou Reed. He's a pretty good actor.
he's I'm glad that we just get this one of him, because it's like an exotic little treat of Lou Reed being funny. Because I do not think of Lou Reed as a funny man.
Yeah, it's kind of like when Rick Ocasek shows up in Hairspray, where you're like, "This is fun. It's fun this time." I don't.
Let's not make a habit of it.
Yeah.
So at her house, Neil's little sister is freaking out about sneaking out to the show.
And that's Ellie Grumbridge.
Yes. So she's the one from Halloween 3. So she has to see Auden. And also, she loves a musician named Reggie Wanker. Pictured on a poster in her room, it's a picture of Malcolm McDowell. And for whatever reason, the eyes move and follow her around the room as she plots to get to the show at the Saturn. So speaking of Reggie Wanker, he's flying to L.A. on a private plane that has his name painted on the wings. He's a stereotypical, self-absorbed rock star, sort of a riff on the ultra stars of the time, like Robert Plant, most obviously Mick Jagger. This role was originally offered to Rod Stewart, but he turned it down, to which I say, good, fuck that guy.
Yeah, I can't imagine that would have been very good. I mean, Rod Stewart's not an actor.
No.
It kind of sucks.
I'd hardly
like, even by like rock and roll standards, like...
Fuck you, Rod Stewart. Anyway, the role was originally booked for Russ Mael from Sparks as well, but apparently he was fired. Just doesn't... The note that I kept seeing was he didn't come across well on screen, which I can kind of see.
Well, he's not an actor.
No, but also Sparks are kind of a bunch of weirdos, so that sort of tracks. So yeah, he has a girlfriend, Reggie Wanker that is, who feels ignored, and Reggie's also stuck in a cycle of ennui since his lifestyle of luxury has drained all the passion out of him. But hey, he loves Coke. Everybody loves Coke, right? And so elsewhere on the plane is his band, played by a bunch of maniacs. Among them is drummer Toad, played by the Doors drummer John Densmore. Mm-hmm. Also in this scene is Fear bass player Durf Scratch, who smashes in a video game that Densmore is playing. Then because this movie is a cartoon, Densmore takes over the plane, flies it like a crazy person. It's flipping all over the place.
It's a real airplane moment.
Yeah. While the Ramones Chop Suey plays.
Yeah, that's a deep cut, too.
It is. I think it was recorded for this movie.
I think isn't it on, what's the one that Phil Spector produced?
End of the Century?
Isn't it on that one?
I don't believe it's on that one. But you can get it on. Oh shit, I can't remember. It's the fucking Ramones record that came out the same year as this one. Too Tough to Die, maybe.
No, that's much later.
No, whatever. I'll think of it later.
Pleasant Screams, Pleasant Dreams.
Pleasant Dreams, that's the one. So at home, Neil's sister Susie sneaks past her parents, and a wild Dick Miller appears. Once again, always pleased to see Dick
briefly,
Miller.
very, very briefly.
But that's kind of the way it is with him in these sort of Corman associated movies. He just sort of shows up.
I love him. He's great.
I love him to death. Yep. So there's some more cartoon sight gags, and then Reggie shows up in a limousine, settles into his dressing room, where Toad immediately begins trashing this place. Joey the stagehand meets Reggie's neglected girlfriend, Chantamina. He falls in love, and he falls over a railing into some balloons. Hey. And then at Colin Beverly's office, he rolls out his plan for the Saturn. He's going to have it one way or the other, you see. And he's going to literally blow the Saturn up and replace it with an office building for his record label. So now it's showtime at the Saturn, and the crowd comes in like a herd of wild animals, and the ushers have to relieve them of all the contraband shit that they're trying to sneak in. And Clint Howard here is seen pulling rifles and bombs and gigantic joints out of people's pants.
Again, this is the Mad magazine of it all.
Yeah. There's an overcoat concealing people on each other's shoulders. There's a dude trying to sneak an entire keg of beer in. And to top it off, there's a gigantic anthropomorphic joint with a funny voice running around. And all this goes down as the theme song of the movie plays, performed by Sparks. One of the band that we talk about a lot on this podcast, I feel like, and I don't know why, because I don't really listen to Sparks.
They're pretty good.
They're great.
This song's great.
Yeah, they show up in like so many fucking movies at the time, but like they're not like a fondly remembered.
I think they were like a quintessential LA band. Like LA, like very specifically 80s LA. Like they were, who's the other one? What was the one the band Brian Ferry was in? Roxy Music. It's a little bit like that, like where they're sort of like, they are a rock musicians, rock music.
I can see that, yeah. There's also a dude on a surfboard for some reason. So King Blues is displeased by the band they sent over to accompany him. They need a blues band, but they sent over a Jews band.
Yeah, we're going to get a lot of Jew jokes.
It's literally a bunch of Jewish guys. The bass player is Philo Kramer, also in Fear. So to prove to King Blues that they can get the job done, Neil puts the Jews band out to stage to rip it up before they can all get out there. One of the members of the band who has braces kisses his girlfriend, who also has braces, and those braces become tangled. Haha. And because they're down a drummer, Neil sends one of the stagehands out to play and introduces the band, who are, to everyone's surprised, really good. It's enough to get King Blues and Cool out there. And it's a pretty good song called The Blues Got Soul, except for the harmonica. Fuck those things. You may as well play a kazoo. I hate fucking harmonicas.
I don't know. It depends on who's doing it.
While this is all going on, Sammy tries to get Max to sign the lease agreement for Colin Beverly. But before he can do it, in walks Dr. Paul Bartel to tell him that he's not dying and it was just some bad Chinese food that got him. I'm going to leave out the shit about the fucking Chinese jokes because that shit is pretty awful. And Sammy tells this to
Colin. It's racism, everybody. It's racism is what he's leaving out.
Sammy tells this to Colin, who hatches a new plan. Sammy has to sabotage the place while Mark and Marv are tasked with literally destroying the building. So now, King Blues then performs a song called Hoochie Coochie Man, which will be a running theme throughout the movie.
It is a blues song that has been recorded by literally everybody.
Yeah. So, there's some more mayhem. Bikers rush the stage door, drive in on bikes. There's a fire in the theater. Sammy cuts a nearby fire hose to make it so they can't put it out. Also, out in the audience, that human joint thing has been is seen having been smoked a little. And now Reggie is in his office, his green room there, trying on some goofy costumes. That's Linnea Quigley making out with Toad.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's time for Nada's band to play. And they have to chain Piggy up because he's crazy. And then they play my favorite song in the whole movie, I'm Not Gonna Take It No More. It is a fucking great
Pretty
song.
good song.
I like it a lot. Her other song in the movie is when her band is coming in. I think it's called "You Can't Make Me." Also a pretty good song.
Yep, both on the soundtrack.
I don't know what I wonder what her deal was, because she shows up in some of Arkush's music videos as an actor.
Is she she seems like a kind of like a Susie Quattro kind of thing, where it's like you were a musician who didn't really quite hit as a musician, but you kind of did as an actor for a little bit, so you just sort of take what you can get.
That makes a lot of sense. It's too bad, because I think that she's pretty good.
It's the same is true for Susie Quattro. She's a fucking great musician, but it just for some reason it never really happened.
That's weird, man. Yeah. But also one of the guitarists in her band is a woman named Chezuro, and she does the song "No Turning Back" from the movie Critters. I thought that was interesting. Yeah, little connection there. And so now, while Nada plays, Neil and Willie discover the fire and the busted fire hose. To fix this, Neil has to go to the Saturn's men's room, which, having been in some of these rock club men's room, isn't that far off from the horror of those places.
It is also a full-page spread in Mad Magazine.
It is. There's like a dude like floating face down in it. He has to put on like waders to get in there. There's a stall with the Jamaican guy smoking weed out of a huge hookah. But this reminded me of two in particular. There was the men's room at the Channel in Boston, which I think they plowed into the bay in the early 90s. That one, I'm pretty sure that the toilets just went straight down into the harbor. It was like one of the most vile bathrooms I've ever been into. The other one that it reminded me of was the fucking bathroom at the Rat.
Well, that was because people ripped out the fucking pipes in the walls.
Yeah. God, the fucking Rat was so
And then they
gross.
had to lay kitty litter down, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
And then from that point on, the whole place smelled like a dank basement spread with kitty litter.
Yeah. Which is kind of what it was.
That's basically what it was.
It was the basement of a crappy bar in Kenmore. But boy, that brought back some memories. But yeah, in this case, Neil kind of makes himself. I'm not really clear how this fixes the broken fire hose situation.
Yeah, this didn't make any sense to me.
But who gives a shit? There's a whole bunch of cuts in this movie that, if you're paying attention, such as the way that I was when I was taking notes, like I noticed that there's all sorts of like bits and pieces that looks like they got cut, like they got edited out for some reason. So this is probably one of them. But he turns on a valve. It fixes the fire hose situation. They put the fire out. So now Piggy takes the stage, and Nada's band does a cover of Hoochie Coochie Man.
This song sucks, but I love watching him.
I love it. I would have loved to have seen Fear.
You still can, unfortunately.
That's not what I mean. If I had a time machine, I would just abuse it to go back and see fucking punk bands in their prime. Like I'd go see Fear in like 1981. I'd go see the fucking Misfits in 1979. Like
you can still see them too if you want.
I don't want to. That's not the Misfits. Oh, that's but yeah.
But I love it. He's great. I love watching him. I think the way he moves it feels so energetic. He's the only one in this movie that feels like an actual singer, and he has an energy that feels like it is an authentic rock and roll energy.
I'm sure Arkush was just like, do your Fear thing.
And he does. I mean, he performs like he performs in Fear.
Yep. And
so 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and all.
And then the audience is, I think, a pretty convincing hardcore audience. Like, there's a real pit in the audience. There's stage
It's because they
divers and
are. They're all they're like extras that they just grabbed from Fear shows and punk clubs.
That's pretty great. And then Piggy climbs on top of the crowd, tells everyone on the balcony to dive off, including Dr. Paul Bartel, which he does.
Yeah, the balcony's a real Where's Waldo.
Yeah, there's a guy with a flamethrower up there. The living joint man is up there.
For some reason, there's a burning cross in the crowd.
That's Jesus with a burning cross for some reason. But yeah, but also, this is how I managed to get from the balcony to the floor when I saw Faith No More in the 90s, where me and my friends literally jumped off the balcony. So, Yep. True facts. Do that if you want to get on the floor. After their show, Nada and the band go back to their dressing room and complain about the beer and champagne waiting for them. And then Electric Larry appears again, reducing a huge rock to a pile of high-grade coke because everybody loves cocaine. I swear, even when I was using, I thought that shit was a dirty drug used by gigantic douchebags. The only people I knew who really liked it were just like alcoholics and shit.
Well, it's because it wasn't fashionable by that point.
Oh God, it's a terrible, awful fucking drug. Out on the street, Auden is still driving around in a taxi cab trying to write a song. But Reggie is getting ready to go on stage, and there's more zany shit happening. Like we said, Jesus is in the crowd waving around a big burning cross, and for some reason. And there's a dude in the crowd who's literally on fire. And also the fire marshal is chasing around the big joint man with a fire extinguisher.
Zing.
Reggie takes the stage, plays a song called Hot Shot, doing his best Mick Jagger.
Oh, this song sucks so hard.
I don't like the Reggie. I like the Reggie Wanker performance. I do not like the Reggie Wanker.
He is doing his best Mick Jagger, it is easily recognizable as Mick Jagger, which I think is the point.
Yeah.
But he feels it looks uncomfortable doing this. This is something that does not come naturally to him. And he can't seem to get into it.
He's also wearing a really strange costume.
Yeah, he has a codpiece on that is ridiculous.
Yeah, but it is what it is. Off stage, Chantamina's eyelash falls off. She tries to get Neil to get it for her. It's down in her cleavage. Willie is mad about this. She leaves, so Neil has Joey take over, and Chantamina ends up quite taken with him. Joey's the young
head of the class
guy. So Mark and Marv find Sammy in the club, reveal their plan to wreck the Saturn, a big fancy bomb that will go off at midnight. Sammy just has to find a place to put it so that it's not found. And then Reggie, meanwhile, he pulls Neil's sister on stage to dance while Sammy stashes the bomb inside of Max's spaceship prop. So then the fire marshal jumps on stage when Reggie shoots sparks from his codpiece and ends up thrown backstage by security. And then Electric Larry then shows up again and doses the stage water bottle with space acid when nobody's looking. And then Neil gives the water to Sammy and the fire marshal, who immediately trip balls. And Sammy gives up on materialism and falls in with Captain Cloud and the Rainbow Telegraph.
Was that the turtle? That the turtles?
Yeah. So speaking of Captain Cloud, he gives a suitcase full of weed to King Blues, who smokes it and then literally walks on air while Reggie Wanker does a cover of Hoochie Coochie Man. And then people also in the audience pass up all sorts of weird gifts to him. Like somebody passes him a turtle and a refrigerator.
Yeah, does that get explained at all?
No. But that's just like I've gone to shows where people do that, where I will see them like throwing stuff on the stage, but it's usually like drugs and stuff like that. It's not like live animals
or a refrigerator
or like household appliances. No, but it's just a goofy psych gag. Willie, meanwhile, captured by Colin Beverly when she overhears Mark and Marv discussing the plan by the stage door. And then Reggie then takes a break to go to his dressing room to kick it with groupies, while Toad does an epic length drum solo. And
is this like a Rush nod?
It must be, or just bands who sort of overindulge.
Because I mean, he's even got like the gong behind him.
Oh sure, yeah. His drum set is comically humongous, which is definitely a Neil Peart joke. It's got to be a Neil Peart joke. But also, we saw that band, the Pretty Reckless, once down in fucking Hampton.
Who's that? What are they?
What the fuck is that actress's name? Taylor Momsen. She's in a bunch of TV things.
Nothing.
And a couple of musicians from like around here. And so it was kind of like a hometown gig. And the drummer is a local guy from like Hampton or something like that. And I shit you not, he abused the drum solo in a way that I have never seen before. I was fucking outraged at the balls. His drum solo was like 11 minutes long. And I was so fucking put off by it. So yeah, that shit happens, man. But anyways, he's caught by Chantamina, the Reggie, that is, when he runs into Joey, who then takes him into a dressing room and has sex with him. Chantamina, that is. And then, much to her surprise, he's got a huge dick.
But
yeah, Auden's taxi is still driving around out there. He crashes into Colin's limo, which frees Willie, and I can't believe I just said that. So she goes running back to the theater to tell him about the bomb. Reggie, unsatisfied with the adoration of nameless groupies, goes looking for Chantamina and walks in on her and Joey. Bummed out, he stumbles back on stage, does a slow jam bum out remix of Hot Shot, which reduces the audience to tears.
And again, it's a moment. He's a hard sell as a rock star. He just doesn't feel like he is one.
You know what it is? He doesn't look like a rock star.
He really doesn't.
That's part of the problem.
But that's what I mean about this whole movie. It's artifice, but like kind of like half-hearted artifice. Heartifice.
Yeah. I'll take it. That's a portmanteau I can roll with. So offstage, Reggie drinks the space acid water to kill time until midnight. Since there's a lot of time left and Reggie won't go out for an encore, they put on a weird ass cartoon, which is a thing that I think they used to actually do at the Fillmore.
People do that? Who did I see? I saw Blowfly one time. He didn't run cartoons, though. He ran pornography behind him. It was really weird. It was like it's a club
Blowfly?
full of people, and there's just weird old 70s porn on, and we're all just kind of standing there like, I don't like that. I don't like the feeling of that.
That tracks, but still, yeah, I get that.
It was very uncomfortable.
You've seen Blowfly. What the fuck was that?
I've seen a lot of wild things. And people.
Reggie goes to the men's room, has a real heart-to-heart with his penis about how he lost his edge, how he needs to make rock and roll fun again. Also, on the ceiling above him are the words Taki 185. This is a bit of unrelated trivia. Taki 185 is popularly believed to be the first graffiti writer in New York. He was the kid who popularized the entire idea of just putting your name around the city and on trains before it kind of ballooned into a
I thought there was somebody else.
Well, I'm sure it's kind of like a contested thing, but what is it? Style Wars, that documentary about the whole thing, kind of credits him with popularizing the movement. But yeah. So then Cool, the guitar player for King Blues, scares off a wild group trying to break into the stage door by shooting a gun into the air. You think that he shot Piggy, but it turns out that he caught the bullets in his teeth.
Yeah, and a real Marx Brothers moment.
Yeah, he spits them out, and they go like, "Pting!" Willie is there in time to tell Neil that there's a bomb in the house. And Neil tells the crowd that there's a bomb, but nobody cares. And they find Sammy to tell them where the bomb is, but he only speaks hippie now. So they have to find Captain Cloud, who translates his hippie bullshit, tells him that the bomb is in the rocket. But Max is on the rocket before they can even get to it, though. And he soars over the crowd. So he pulls the bomb out, tries to throw it to Neil, but he misses, and it ends up tossed around on top of the crowd like a beach ball until it's tossed out to the lobby, and then outside of Colin Beverly's limo, and then blows up. But it's all good, because they've just been blown up into the sky where they hang on to electrical wires. Then the clock strikes midnight, and then it's all good. Everybody sings Auld Lang Syne. Then the bands leave. King Blues takes Neil's stagehand and the Jews band on tour. Nada loads her band back into the clown car and takes off, and the hippies all load into their bus and disappear.
Everything you just said is absolute fucking nonsense.
All in time for Auden to show up and miss the whole thing as the crowd piles out. The giant joint man has been smoked down to a roach, but he's still walking around. And then with a successful show behind them, Max gives the lease to Neil to take over and run the place while Max retires.
You know, like you do in the early 80s. You just give a giant lease and building to someone.
Hey man, materialism's a bummer, man. You know, we're just gonna keep the art alive. It is a bummer, but roll credits. But after the initial titles, the credits roll over a really great Lou Reed song.
Yeah, I like
that part. That he plays to Susie, Neil's little sister. It's really nice because it's kind of like touching and very kind of poignant in a way that the rest of the movie is not. It's just a really
I think that's the movie that Arkush was trying to make.
Yeah, it's just a really nice little performance.
And I like listening to Lou Reed sing. So
yeah. But yeah, so what I was talking about at the very beginning is Arkush directed the Bette Midler video for Beast of Burden the same year as this movie came out. And during the line in Beast of Burden, little sister Stacey Nelkin, who plays Susie, is in that video. And it's like,
Jesus,
is it a coincidence? Because if it is, it's a really weird coincidence.
It's just part of the Arkush verse.
It's
a small verse. It's mostly just Paul Bartel and Mary Warnoff and the Ramones for some reason.
Yeah. Anyway, that's Get Crazy.
Yeah, sure is.
Yeah, I can tell. You don't like it.
Yeah.
And that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. I think it's a perfectly functional movie. I think it's funny, and I love its energy. I love the fact that it feels completely out of control all the fucking time.
But in a way that just is messy. I mean, it doesn't.
Well, sure. I think more people would know about this movie if it was a bit more coherent. It's not, and the appeal to me about the whole thing is
it doesn't even have to be coherent. It can be what it is if it has a point. Unfortunately, whatever his point was, it gets buried under all this other dumb airplane bullshit. So it's like you have all these things vying for attention, and in doing that, the whole thing falls apart. It's like, you can have a wacky movie. That's not what bothers me. It's not the wackiness I don't like. It's the fact that it goes nowhere and says nothing. And you didn't even give me authentic rock and roll performances. You gave me actors portraying rock and roll, and it feels that way. So it's not only is it a jumbled mess, it's also inauthentic.
I don't know. I don't feel that way. I feel like this was the best movie that he could make under those circumstances.
I don't blame him. I think he probably set out with good intentions, and I would have liked to have seen what he wanted to do. It sounds like this just got, it's a bit of a too many cooks moment.
Yeah. I mean, and the fact that the executive producer intended for it to be a fucking disaster, I would imagine that that dude probably picked an editor who just like hacked it up and turned this thing into something that's I admit barely watchable, but
yeah, I mean, it feels like someone had a shitload of footage and we're like, here you go, make something out of this.
Yeah. I would love to have seen the movie that he intended to make. Who knows what that could have been? I think this movie is genuinely fucking funny. Some of it, some of the jokes are really fucking goofy, cringy dad jokes, and I could do without that shit. There's a bit of typically fucking characteristic 80s racism in it. Thankfully, it's not. It's not something that is ubiquitous and all pervasive. That I cannot say is common in other movies. But yeah, it's definitely got some problems in that area. But otherwise, I think this movie is funny as fuck. So what's next? What are we doing? What are we doing next?
Well, this one here will be back in 2 weeks. We're taking on an actual honest to God classic. In Billy Wilder's Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah, this is a listener request. I believe it's our first one, so I'm looking forward to that. So
great movie.
Yeah,
great movie.
Yeah, and so we'll be back in a week with Bring Me the Axe doing Tobe Hooper's The Funhouse. We'll be back in 2 with Sunset Boulevard. So we'll see you then.